Hello, I'm Caleb Murphy, a third-year veterinary student at the Texas A&M College of Veterinary Medicine. I am with Peer, a partner in environmental education and rural health. Today in our interview series, Careers in Veterinary Medicine, we will be Representative Charles Doc Anderson. He is one of the 150 members of the Texas House of Representatives.
I'm Charles Doc Anderson, a state representative currently, and I've been a small animal practitioner in the Waco area since 1981. Sold my practice in 2015, and so this is actually my 16th year with the state of Texas as a state representative, and I sold my practice in 2015, and so I'm kind of doing this full time. It's actually full-time plus position, but that's what we're doing currently. Very much unique in that there is some veterinary medical aspects of it, but we're totally out of the clinic, totally out of the ambulatory process, and we're in the state capitol. During session in Texas, it's 104 days every 2 years, but we don't get a chance to practice a whole lot. Now there's two other veterinarians currently in the Texas House, and they still are maintaining practice. One is kind of shifted to ambulatory, and then the other one is more of an equine. But it's so demanding that it takes away a lot of your time from practice to while we're in session, and then during the interim between sessions, there's a lot of running around the state and a lot of running around the nation, and dealing with those type issues, conferences and what have you, and then dealing with constituents in the district. Each district, it represents about, I think we're up to probably, I'd say 170,000 people in each district, and they all have their issues, be it business or be it personal or be it dealing with government or what have you. So that kind of sets the parameters. Basically, it's to provide a service, kind of like veterinary medicine does. It's our main goal, is to service our industry, but to help our entire community, and kind of morph from actually veterinary focus to other areas, from agriculture to national defense to budgetary issues, to helping constituents. So it's all kind of involved in the global sense, if you would. And so our goals are providing as much service as we can for our community, and each community is different, and each one, we have 17 cities in our district, and to help deal with these problems in Austin, to help bring veterinary medicine into that fold. And so it's a multifaceted aspect. That was interesting because when I graduated in 1981 and came to Waco, I had no idea would be involved in politics. However, I did want to be involved in organized veterinary medicine. That's super important. At the time, there wasn't a whole lot that the association would do that was proactive, would always be catching up. And so folks in real life, in the practice scenario, be it insurances or be it employee issues or be it what have you, taxes, we're always playing catch up. And so that was instrumental in establishing the PAC, Political Action Committee, for the veterinary profession, so that we could actually be involved. And they've since grown tremendously from there. We have a great crew in Austin that really does a great job representing veterinary medicine, and that's what we need to help protect the practice and to help deal with small business issues, and to make sure that we're up to speed on what's going on in our world. Well, hopefully it's positive. That's how you get reelected. And it's, let's say, a service that's important to note, because this position actually it's paid $7,200 a year, so it's not like you're trying to make money at representing people, but we want to try and help folks solve their problem and help them understand and be a conduit between what they're dealing with in everyday life, or their business, small business, if you would, and what's going on in Austin. And it's a two-way street. Oftentimes I see my role is as an ombudsman, if you would, and to actually make sure that bureaucracy doesn't interfere with what they have to deal with in their daily lives. And that's a constant challenge. Well, when we have in session, it's full time. You know, I mean, and sometimes it's even overnight. I mean, during budget time, you know, it's 24/7, literally. But when we're in session, we're in Austin most of the time, and dealing with lobby, dealing with constituents that come up with their issues, dealing with other bills that come along. We generally have about 7,000 bills during the regular session, and probably 4 times as many amendments that you stay on top of and kind of work with. And I sit on agriculture and livestock, and that works well with veterinary medicine. And we kind of oversee veterinary medicine as far as the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners, TVMA, and those organizations. And so we try and deal with that and kind of solve those problems and make sure that the public is involved in that, you know, where you have public testimony, so that we can kind of help smooth out some of the wrinkles, if you would, as we rock along. And oftentimes there's a lot of challenges. In '07, we had a hurricane, Katrina, that knocked out all the natural gas in the Gulf production, natural gas production. And so there was a fast tracking of water and air permits to build pulverized coal plants in Texas. Governor Perry was very prudent in having 7 to pulverized coal plants to expedite the permitting, to get them online so that we can maintain our grid, so we'd have electricity when you flip the switch. But then TXU came along and said, okay, we have 11 we want to retrofit. So the bottom line, there was 18 pulverized coal plants programmed for Texas. 9 of them were within 50 miles of where we're sitting right now. And so as a freshman, I was coming in there, but I understood NOx and SOx and pollution, and I understood those issues. So they couldn't hoodwink me, if you would. But as a freshman legislator, I was the only one in the House or Senate that would stand up to TXU and say, no, we can't go with this. Too much of that technology, too much pollution. And there would have been, like, say, 9 plants right here. Waco would have been non-attainment like that. Dallas, Austin, because of the wind patterns and all, would have been a non-attainment, which would have really impacted business and the lives of folks. And so early on, we got involved, tied up with some of the tree huggers, which was really surprising as a conservative Republican, and to try and solve that problem. We were very successful in doing that, but it was a very, very trying time. The Robert Redford did actually 2 documentaries on that. Fighting Goliath was one, and I forget the title of the other one was, but that was a tremendous battle for the state of Texas. So he was a veterinarian in my first term, fighting that battle to make sure that we didn't have too much of one type of technology. Kind of like I mentioned there with the Ring of Fire, where they were trying to fast track 18 pulverized coal plants. That's technology we didn't need at that level. That was a real challenge, and it was kind of me against the world there with the lobby, because they had invested $10 billion in trying to do that. And when somebody says, whoop, nope, we can't do that, too much of that technology, it was a real challenge. It was really a difficult time, and because I was the only one in the legislature that said, no, we can't go there. But it prevailed, and so I was thrilled with that, and the good Lord was smiling. And that's part of the biggest challenges. The time management is the other, particularly in practice, and going to the legislature, even here locally, would have breakfast meetings, would have lunch meetings, dinner meetings with constituents, and then look back to the practice. And my wife did a great job trying to keep the practice organized while we're there, and we had a number of relief veterinarians that stepped in and helped out when we needed it also. It also was very challenging to do campaigns, because you have to run for office and do the campaign, and it's challenging running around, as you've seen in many elections, to have the time to do that and raise money and that type of thing. Elections have consequences. We have statutes and the government that we have to have, and I very much support, but oftentimes the bureaucracy gets awry. Sometimes the regulation gets overbearing. Sometimes our actual rights as a small business person or even as an individual kind of get pressed somewhat, and so it's super important to have a voice across the board, everybody in our community, to have a voice in what's going on there, particularly in veterinary medicine or in the medical world, the Texas Medical Association, or with engineering or with farmers. It's important that, and it's always been my view, that we need to make sure we hold government accountable and to be able to work with people and understand their problems and how that's impacting what's going on. It's very germane even today with Governor Abbott, and he's doing a good job, but with the emergency orders that he's had, every one of those are the issues, well, that filters down to the real life grassroots level, and it's a problem for people. Restaurants shutting down or veterinary practice being restricted or what have you, and so trying to deal with those problems as they evolve is super important for our entire community. I'd say in this state they only pay $7,200 a year, so you have to establish your profession and become financially able to run for office. You have to run every 2 years, so it's a challenge there too to win an election to be able to serve. Other states they are paid different levels, and so other states they could jump right in there and get remunerated, but in Texas, and I wouldn't change it either. 9 states that are like Texas, every one of them is in the black. All the others like California, New York, Illinois, what have you, that pay you $100, $125 a year. Every one of them's in the ditch financially. It's incredible. So you have to be able to finance those activities. Be thankful. Folks are blessed to be able to attend Texas A&M University and the College of Veterinary Medicine. You get a great education there, and you have a great place to practice. Because of some of the things that we've done in Austin, Texas economically it leads the nation, and so that gives young graduates an opportunity to practice, in many different areas, and so they really are blessed to be in this profession and to be in this state. And like I was saying before, that's the reason for giving back at whatever level they decide. I'd say call the TVMA or call myself or Dr. Brad Buckley or Dr. Lynn Stuckey, and kind of where they are and how they got involved. Each of them was kind of different, actually. And like I say, I was involved in running back and forth the TVMA to Austin and Washington, D.C., and the more involved we got, the more folks asked us to. And then when this seat came open, I threw my hat in the ring, and here we are 16 years later.
We hope you enjoyed our discussion with Representative Charles Doc Anderson. If you'd like to learn more about veterinary medicine, please visit our website at vetmed.tamu.edu/peer. Thank you and have a good day.
Oh, absolutely, and they have very much so over the years. There's been several issues that have come up that that the veterinarians have kind of found themselves in the middle, and we actually had students come from A&M, and they represented themselves in an outstanding manner, and actually carried the day at hearings in Austin before the Ag and Livestock Committee, by the students saying, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're trained in, this is the experiences we have, and they carried themselves just amazing. We're really, really proud of them. They helped turn the day actually in that issue. But it's important for students to voice their opinion, And I've spoken at the vet school on a number of occasions, and to let them know that it's super important as business people that they get involved in the community. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the state representative level, but it could be on the school board, or it could be on the city council, to kind of have a role, giving back, if you would, to their community. The cost of veterinary medicine is very, very, as far as vet school, is very one of the most costly of all the professions. And the tuition is just a small fragment of that. So it's a taxpayer that pays a large percentage of that. And so the veterinary student, in my opinion, and the new graduate really does have a debt to society, and so it's important that they do that, not only be it in their church or be it in their community, or like I say, holding office, but it's super important that they engage. And veterinary medicine it's one of the few professions that still has a good reputation, and so it's important that we maintain that and that we get involved and help our communities. And it's amazing how you get, like in the house, it's 150 members from all over the state, from all walks of life. And how we can come together for 140 days, and pretty tough. I mean, we're there, like I say, all the time, and work things out and come up with a budget, if you would, and come up with some of these bills and work some days as individuals, a compadre, some individuals there, that same individual another day would be adversarial, depending on what the issues are, but the system works well, and it's just amazing that we can do that, and not that's without, consternation from time to time. You take the abortion issues or taxes, I mean, it breaks down party lines. The party line on the Democratic side is state income tax. Every session they try and bring that up, and that would be very difficult for veterinary practice. It's not having to do with veterinary medicine per se, but it's the tax side, which is huge. Maintaining your drugs and what you have to do with that. We just dodged a bullet, and we're able to kind of get out of the pharmaceutical management aspect, where you'd have to every day write whatever drugs you're using and report that to the FDA on a daily basis. But this would be a tremendous burden financially. You have to hire another person, maybe practice 2 people, to maintain all that. And that's where it gets to be a real burden. The same with some of the insurances, it's a real burden on the practice, trying to maintain an economically viable practice. And so oftentimes it's not actually dealing with the actual medicine and hands-on, but it's things that directly impact that. We had one bill that was very emotional. Was we had a rollover in Beaumont that killed 2 11th graders coming back from a soccer game, and mangled the face on another one, caused one to lose her arm, caused the other one to not lose her arm, but she couldn't use it. It was damaged her arm, and she'd come down every time. They'd come down every time we had that bill, and to try and put seatbelts in the school bus. Well, they had lobbyists that would pop up each time that's brought up and try and shoot that down, and we were able to get it passed. And it was a funny thing. My desk mate, great lady, African-American lawyer from Houston, Texas. I'm a Republican Democrat. I'm a Republican veterinarian, small animal guy, different ways of looking at things. Get along great. We just get along great. She's an outstanding lady, Sonia Thompson. And the politics of the thing is the fellow that was the head of the Democratic caucus walked by. It had to be at her desk. He just walked by, and he had a little card like this. He just dropped it on her desk as he walked by. And I was just fixing to bring this bill up for the 3rd reading to pass it in the House. And she looks at that. She says, "Doc, I got a point of order on your bill." And a point of order is it can be any little thing from a comma here to a date wrong to a page wrong to something farcical, but it kills the bill. It's on local consent calendar to the last day, just 3rd reading to get it passed. And I said, yeah, Sophronia, you gotta do what you gotta do. But the girls are here, they were all up there, the coaches. And she says, well, and it was incredible homework. She says, well, I'm not gonna call a point of order on my desk mate. She put that in her pocket and she left the floor. When she did that, Sophronia's been there a long time. She's like the second or third in seniority. When she left the floor, they weren't gonna challenge her. They were saying, oh, we'll get so-and-so. And there were enough Democrats there would have popped that like that. She saved that bill. And when folks say, well, Doc, you did a great job on that, I said, no, it wasn't me, it was Sophronia Thompson saved that bill. We went over to the House, we passed it in the House, went over to the Senate that same day. There's an amendment I didn't want to risk staff, put it on in the Senate, and it passed in the Senate. When we came off the floor, we were in tears. The senators were in tears, all the coaches and all that, were just incredible. And he told me, he says, Doc, we've tried to get that passed for 5 sessions and couldn't get it passed. And I said, well, I was glad to be a part of it, but Sophronia Thompson saved that. Otherwise, they would have popped it. And those type things are just amazing. That Ring of Fire I was telling you about with all those plants, that was amazing. The one lady, when that came down, and TXU was huge at that time. It's not the same TXU now. TXU went under. They actually went under. They had to raise $10 billion on Wall Street. And when I filed that, it wasn't a bill, it was a House Continuing Resolution, HCR. And the HCR, the beauty of that, this is my first session, the beauty of that is that it can't be, the chairman can't kill it, Otherwise, they put so much pressure on the chairman to say, well, if it gets, it won't get out of committee. Or if it gets out of committee and you pass it, the governor can say, well, I'd veto it if it gets there. And they were really putting a lot of pressure on Governor Perry at the time. So I said, well, we'll do it as an HCR, House Continuing Resolution. Boy, they were aggravated. The next morning, they had the number 2 guy from TXU in Fort Worth who was down there calling me off the floor. They said, we got to pull this down. He said, no, we're not going to pull it down. He said, well, yeah, no, we are going to pull it. I said, no, we're not going to pull it down. And he said, well, and I explained to him what my whole enchilada, I call it, And all this is the reasons why we can't. One of the things like the train, you get a train go right through Waco here. There's 100 cars on those. Yeah. Each one of those plants at capacity is 100 cars of coal per day. So, and they go out to the Powder River Basin. They're all saying, well, burns cleaner coal. Well, that comes from Montana, Powder River Basin. So, with 18 coal plants here in Texas, 9 of them right here, you'd have that many trains coming down here full, going back empty. So that screwed up every one of the rural communities. They like Moody over here. They have to blow the whistle 3 different times going through Moody, little town of Moody. Each one of those crossing. And so little things like that were a huge problem, plus the pollution. But the thing that was amazing is that my chief called me out of the office and he said, Doc, you got to look at this. And it was at the State Office of Administrative Hearings in Austin. And that's the folks that would rule on it finally. And they ruled on exactly what my HCR was. No fast tracking these permits for at least 6 months so we could see how it impacted the entire state of Texas. So, but the thing was, so I came out there, my chief said, yeah, look at this. I'm looking at it. And so a judge says, wow. And I said, man, I can't believe we prevailed against TXU. It is a Goliath thing. I said, man, I can't believe it. At that moment, this lady comes through, and we were in the 500 hall, which is way in the extension. We'll show you that when we get down there, way over in the extension. This lady comes through the door, and I'm reading this, and she says, Doc, I want to give you this. And I said, well, what is it? And she put it in my hand, and it was a little leather pouch. I said, well, what is it? She said, well, open it. I put it in, it was 3 smooth stones. The thing was, it was incredible. I said to Matt, well, who was that lady? Because she walked out there. He said, I don't know. He'd been in the building for 30 years. He said, I don't know. And so I had these 3 smooth stones, and I had this email at the same moment. As you imagine, it was incredible that it would be TXU. And the inspiration to me was my niece. I'd carry around barrel racing, all these little communities around here all the time. Those kids had no idea what was literally on the horizon. And you can actually see, there's a little bit of with that fog and all that dust, but there, if you just go to the left of that communications tower, on the horizon way out there, you'll see this little, you can see that white, it's like a cruise ship sitting way over there. You see those spires there to to the left, and then a little further over on the horizon, see the little white spot there. It's tough to see with this dust, but that one. They'd already had the water and air permits on, so that was already in the mix. But it's furloughed now. It can't compete with natural gas. That's pulverized coal.
Right.
But there have been 4 of those right on this horizon. Literally right on this horizon, there have been 4 of them, and there are 5 immediately behind that. And so, I just says no way we can do that. And like I say, as a veterinarian, I understood what all the chemistry was, so they couldn't BS me on that.
Good, yeah.
And so it was just incredible. We fought that battle and prevailed. Yeah, we're dealing with rural Texas in so many ways, from trying to maintain the hospitals there to expanding broadband. I had bills last year on expanding broadband. Now, with this COVID and with the challenges for kids in school and all, when they don't have broadband access, or it's not reliable, or it's very costly, that really has emphasized that issue. So we were blessed to be able to work on that last session, and we're working on bills to kind of refine a little bit now, so we can get the entire state of Texas, particularly rural Texas, into the get them where they have access that way. So there's just so many different challenges around the state, and it's amazing. One of the things we'll get involved in is from prisons, from trying to help move prisoners from one place to another, to SpaceX, encouraging SpaceX, which is right here in McGregor, and we were instrumental in helping them build the first private commercial launch facility in the world. It's in Brownsville, Texas. Called Boca Chica is what it's called. And they'll be launching, the first Mars mission will be from there. Those things that you get involved in are really, really exciting and really rewarding in that regard. It's amazing, human nature and how you deal with all the different aspects and try and bring them all together. With that broadband last session, trying to bring AT&T together and Verizon together and the Public Utility Commission together, all these people are very much like oil and water, and trying to make progress with getting a bill passed.